Hey, this is Daniel from Green Life Farm, and welcome to Module 1, Lesson 1. Lesson 1 is all about seeding. You're going to get the ins and outs of what we do, why we do it. You're going to see what we use for our trays, what we use for transplants, and what seeds we also direct seed outside into the ground. We hope you enjoy, we hope you're entertained, and we hope you learned something. Anyway, follow us. So in this lesson, I'm going to show you the two different types of trays that I use. And below in our description, I'm going to have kind of like a, if you want to call it a cheat sheet. And that's going to list everything that we plant and in which trays we plant those in. It kind of just gives you a quick overview instead of me having to show you every single thing and get you guys to be pretty bored. But this, yeah, so today we're going to plant what's called a 72 tray. And we're going to plant a paper pot, which is a 264. And so, first of all, the number just represents the amount of cells that are in a flat. So a 72 flat is 72 cells or 72 plants in that one tray. My paper pot tray, 264, means you get 264 plants in that tray. So here at Green Life Farm, I would say about 75 to 80% of our seedlings are put in the ground as transplants. And the reason why we do this is here in New Brunswick, we have a very, very short growing season. So we need any leg up that we can get. In order to do that, we start our greenhouse first thing in the spring. We run a heater, we get everything right temperature wise so that we can have plants ready to go in the ground as soon as the snow is gone. All right, so what we have here in front of us is this is what's called a 72 cell tray. And so the number 72 just shows how many holes is in this tray. So below in the description, we're gonna have some cool different sheets for you guys throughout the course. And the one for this module mainly will be what we plant here at Green Life Farm and what trays we use to plant them in. We're gonna give you the ins and outs of how early we plant them when it comes to frost and all that different stuff as well. But what we're gonna focus on right now is the 72 tray. First thing we do, we take our 72 tray and we pour water on it. When you're seeding, you want to make sure that your seeds are getting optimal water. This helps break the seed coating and helps them germinate into the plant that you later will transplant. So the next thing we do, we grab another 72, you know, preferably an older one, a broken one, something that you're not going to use for seeding. We place that on and we just give it a push, you know, make sure that you put a decent amount of weight on it and you come up and right there you can see, okay, now I have my holes that I can put my seeds in. So now it's perfect. Now is a great time to see, okay, maybe I could use just a bit more water in a few spots. So you can grab your container again. Now, when it comes to seeding and watering, I love when I'm just doing our trays out, just using a regular hand water. It's very light, it's very gentle, it's not going to displace the seeds, it's also not going to displace any of your dirt. Speaking of the dirt, we buy an organic potting mix, we put it in our big bin, and then we mix our compost. We have, again, organic compost. We do a light sift on it, so we're getting nice, very small particles, and that just gives your plant all the food it needs before you start transplanting it. All right, so what we're planting today, I have romaine lettuce seed. Romaine lettuce is something that sells very well on the farm here, and you'll see in our seeding list later that this is something we plant every single week. And we do it right up until we know we have enough to bring us to the end of the season. So what you want to do, grab your seed, pour a bit into your hand, and then just start putting it in. So when it does come to seeding, what you're going to notice that at first it takes a lot of time, a little bit of practice to get it down right, to be able to drop, you know, one seed at a time. But you'll notice very quickly that you'll get the hang of it and seeding will really speed up. Also, when it comes to efficiency of doing farming and when it comes to seeding, is you want to grab 10 of these trays at a time. You want to stack them up, have them ready in dirt, have them watered already. so that you can just go from one right to the next. You want to make sure that there's smooth transitions, that you're not wasting time going back and forth. Have your water already prepped, have it set up, ready to go. I always have 2 watering cans, so I don't have to stop in between my row of 10 trays. You want to make sure when it comes to seeding that things are going efficient. You want to flow, you want a system, you want things to move very well. Another thing you want to remember while seeding is always have your hands dry. If your hands are any bit moist or wet, you are going to pick up several seeds at a time and they're not going to drop properly, and that will really slow things down. Now, if something does happen that you do by mistake drop 2 or 3 seeds in the cell, listen, don't worry about it and don't try to dig it out, because again, that will get your hands wet and you do not want that. You know, in a matter of 7 to 10 days when the seeds germinate, you'll be able to much easier pick out the extra little pieces of romaine instead of trying to get it while it's still in its seed form. You know, the thing is here is you want to move through trays pretty quick. You want to learn to get better, so just keep dropping the seeds in. Drop more than one, don't worry about it, leave it there. All right, so once you have finished seeding your tray, all you're going to do is just lightly cover it back with your seeding mix. Then you're going to take your watering can again and just lightly go over it. What you don't want to happen if you are using a hose is you don't want high pressure, because this is where you can dislodge your seeds or you can float them to the top and they will not germinate for you. You're going to lose your seed. You're going to have poor germination. The tray is going to look terrible. You want just a nice light watering. You know that everything's wet and it's going to germinate for you. This is going to give you your best results. You're going to be much happier with the transplants. They're going to be thick, they're going to be strong, they're going to be green. It's going to look really nice and transplant really well for you. And that's exactly what you want. All right, so the very last thing you want to do for your tray is you want to take a popsicle stick, and for mine it just says romaine lettuce. And this helps you later as you put these trays anywhere in your seeding greenhouse to identify what it is. So what you want to do with this, if you know you're going to seed off 10 or 20 trays, beforehand, take your popsicle sticks while your hands are still dry, write down what you're doing, so that way it's beside you, it's ready to go. You don't want to keep switching back from putting dirt down, putting water down, then trying to write. Make sure it's done before, put it on your tray, and now you have a recognizable tray if you're not too sure which plant is which. Best way to identify it, it's great for when you get into broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage, when the seedlings all come up and they look identical. So you want to very much make sure you know how to identify your plants, because the spacings can be different on them when you're planting them outside. So yeah, easy done, put it in one cell, make it recognizable, and it's just as simple as that. And then you have your tray ready to go. All right, so now that you know how to plant out a 72 tray, we're going to move on to paper pot. We're going to show you the accordion paper. We're going to show you the different sizes that they come in, and we're going to plant one out just to give you the overview of how we do it here at Green Life Farm. All right, so when it comes to paper pot chains, you can buy 3 different sizes. There is a 2-inch spacing size, there's a 4-inch spacing size, and there's a 6-inch spacing size. Here at Green Life Farm, we mainly use the 2-inch and 4-inch. In the past, we have tried some different items with 6-inch, didn't like how it turned out, and kind of have ruled them right out. So right on the side of the paper pot chain, there are numbers and there's colors. And very quickly, you'll understand that the numbers and colors correspond to the different spacings. So right off the bat, I can see number 10 green, that's 10 centimeters. In my head, it does the calculation automatically. That's my 4-inch spacing. So what I'll do, where I keep these chains, I have a box of 2-inch and I have a box of 4-inch, and I know right away from the color and the number that I picked the right one for the right job. First thing we do, we grab our spreader bar, we come right along, and right on the side of the paper pot, there's a tab. And you just slide that right in. We grab the second one, put it on the opposite side, do the exact same thing. Very important here, you'll notice there's little arrows, and that's what's pointing down. Always has to point down. That way, when you spread the chain, it fits perfectly into the slots below. Next, we'll remove the spreaders. We'll grab our paper pot tray, put it over the chain, and flip it. All right, so now the paper pot chain is filled with soil. Couple things to remember. When you're filling your paper chains, you really want that soil to be well sifted. It needs to have no large particles because the cells on the paper chains are quite small. They can really block it, and later when you actually go to put this in the paper pot transplanter, you can have some issues. But now this is done, it's ready to go. First thing we do, same as the 72s, we want to give this a nice good watering. Next thing we do, it's a little different than your 72s where you just flatten it with a tray. You want to take your fingers, come right along and push in the divots. Really, really simple. All right, all our divots are in the paper pot chain. The next thing you want to do is remove the spacer. Now, the weight of the dirt and the compression of it will keep the paper chain the size of your tray. So, now we're going to grab our seeds, and I got some spinach here, and I'm going to start seeding it. So, when it comes to spinach, it has a bit worse germination than most plants in a greenhouse. So what I always do is I take my seeds and I want to put 4 or 5 seeds per cell. This will make sure that we'll get an even rise of plants throughout the entire tray, and later when we go to plant it, you'll get more yield on your bed. So now we've covered our paper pot again with a bit of light soil. We're going to take our watering can, same thing we did with the 72s, and we're going to lightly water it in. Just for a reminder again, if you are using a hose and a hose hookup, please do not put a lot of pressure on this, as you will destroy and all your seeds will float up. In the very end, just like the 72 trays, we take our popsicle stick, says spinach on it, we place it in the cell, and we're done. Now you know this is what it is. You can put it together in a certain area in your greenhouse. You can come back, oh right, that's my spinach. This will easily identify the plant that's in your tray, and in a matter of 3 weeks, you'll be ready to plant this out into the ground. All right, so still in lesson 1, but I wanted to let you know we had a little cut here, and we're actually a few months later than what you've seen at the beginning of this video. And the reason for that is I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about our seeding greenhouse, a little bit of how we heat it, all that stuff. But the only way I could do that is having all of our trays already gone out. So we're very late season here at the farm. Our seeding greenhouse is done for this season. We're going to have a few more direct seeded crops in our greenhouse, but nothing else that has to be in our trays in our greenhouse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you see some of the stuff that we use. You'll get some nice B-roll of our benches. And as you'll see, you guys can do this on a budget. It really does not cost a lot. And the main thing I'm going to discuss and show you is how we heat our seeding greenhouse. And all this, so basically, we use a pellet stove. It's that simple. Now we have modified it a bit. We have noticed that our pellet stove, the way it's currently designed, they're set up for houses, right? They're not set up for a greenhouse. So the modifications, we did 2 major things. First thing we did is we put a hopper on top. This just allows us to put an extra bag of pellets in, so we don't have to be out here 5:30 in the morning filling up the hopper again. Now we can show up at 8:30 in the morning. Now, granted, I'm sure you're going to be showing up earlier, especially the first few times you run it. You want to make sure it's running smoothly, all that. But yeah, it just allows that extra burn time, gives us that little bit of safety knowing that if something came up early morning, we have a meeting to attend, you're planning when you're going to do more seedlings, whatever you're doing, that you know your stove's not going to burn out on you. You're going to be okay. The other major thing we did with our stove is we wanted to make sure that we're actually getting the most efficient use of our stove. So what that means is all your different types of heating systems have a BTU rating. And so whether it's 32,000 BTUs, 50,000 BTUs, and that's just an energy unit telling you how much heat you can get out of it. So the big thing we have done is we noticed the first several years that our stack temperature, so the air that's coming out of our chimney is extremely, extremely hot. And what that tells us is that the efficiency of our stove, we're pumping free heat right out the side of the greenhouse. So the big thing to remember, the reason why we went with a pellet stove instead of an actual wood stove is we don't have to come in throughout the night to fill it up, is the first thing. The second thing is pellet stoves have a blower on them. So they're not using natural convection to pull that smoke out of the greenhouse. And the other thing is they burn very clean. So there isn't a lot of smoke. There's some steam, but besides when you actually start up a pellet stove, you don't see a lot of smoke. So the next thing we knew we could do is we took some single walled pipe, and we took it from out of the back of our pellet stove. We brought it around our greenhouse, and then we sent that outside to the chimney. So that lowered our stack temperature drastically. Now you can stick your hand in front of the stack temperature, the air coming right out of that, and it will not burn your hand. Now, the neat part about that means you created that much more efficiency in your greenhouse. That means the air traveling along that stack is radiating that heat off, and we have put that and designed it to go right underneath our seating benches. So we're getting that radiant heat right to the bottom of those plants, which is going to make for excellent germination in the cool spring. We start this greenhouse up quite early. Currently it's March 1st is when we set it up. And as we continue farming, we actually plan on eventually selling basically year round and starting this greenhouse up, end of January, beginning of February. And so the goal is with that is you want efficient use of heat. You don't want to be spending huge amounts of money out on heat. So the more efficient, the better. The other thing that we do here at our greenhouse is in early spring, we section off this seating greenhouse. We get another piece of plastic, we put it over top, and we put a wall on the side. And that allows that heat to stay right there where it's needed. It is not flowing way down the greenhouse. We set up a few circulating fans, and that heat stays here. There is one other thing I will mention. When you're seeding peppers or tomatoes, they need a little bit more heat to germinate than most other crops. So we'll actually put a heating wire down, and that helps that, and we will put it the closest to our stove as possible. There's, behind me here is the farthest position from the stove, and that's where we'll germinate our lettuce or our spinach, something that doesn't need a lot of heat. But something that, like peppers and tomatoes, where need your most BTUs, that goes right up next to the stove. So far, we've been farming for many years now, and it's worked. It's worked well for us. It's been cheap. I spend, actually this year with the new efficiency of changing the longer stove pipe, I spent $600 on heating. So guys, when you're talking about trying to run $100,000 on an acre farm, $600 is nothing. It's really simple, and we don't mind using that. Yeah, is there other options out there? For sure. And if there's something that works better in your area, check it out. I know some people use oil furnaces. In our local area here, the price is too high. For what I use, that pellet stove is perfect for the seating greenhouse. Now, this is different when you're talking about actually heating an entire greenhouse for early production. That pellet stove is just not going to put out the BTUs you're going to need for an entire greenhouse. And that's where our outdoor stove comes into place. We have an outdoor wood doctor that basically you put in large logs, and that heats up a boiler tank above it, and the water lines filter in, and they send that heat into our greenhouses. So when you're pricing things out and you're doing things, that pellet stove is not going to heat your greenhouse, but it's going to be perfect for your seating greenhouse and for that space. In our seating greenhouse, we run 20 feet wide by 30 feet long. And also in the early spring, when we have lots of crops being seeded, we will put a center row right where I'm standing, and we fill this to the max, absolutely to the max. And as soon as stuff goes out into the fields or into the greenhouses, we fill it right back up. Our schedule is very precise. Some crops we're seeding every 2 weeks, some crops we're seeding weekly, some are monthly, and then there's others like our tomatoes that are just seeded the one time. But the thing is, you want to make sure that space that you're heating is being used very, very efficiently. You don't want half the greenhouse not being used in your coldest part of the season. You want to make sure you maximize the money value out of those BTU units. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you learned a few things. And yeah, you can copy our designs. You can do whatever you want. You can design something of your own. Check what's in your area. You know, if natural gas is piped in easily, then and it's cheaper, absolutely. If propane's cheaper, you know, whatever works. That's going to make sure you have that consistent temperature, that you can battle off those cold winds of the early spring. Even I will tell you guys, here where we are in New Brunswick, in early March, we'll still hit minus 30 degrees Celsius at night. It's not a stretch to say that we're out of winter already. We still have snow to the last week of April. So you want to make sure that that heating system's reliable, that's good. Also, make sure you have a generator. The power is going to go out on you. There's going to be a night that you're going to wake up, the power is out. You got to get that generator on. Make sure your heating system does not turn off. Keep that temperature. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this. Thanks. So we've gone over how to seed a 72 tray, how we seed our paper pot. This concludes the first lesson. We hope you learned something, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one.